In this session, we are going to talk about Java control statements. To understand the use case of Java control statement, I will give you an example. So let's say you have to write a code in which, given a student's marks or given marks of a particular student, what you have to do is that if marks is greater than 80, you print distinction, or if it is less than 80, you print no distinction. So we'll see how the program goes for this. But if you try to see what is happening in this, what we're trying to do is that based on certain condition, we are trying to control the flow of execution of a code. So that is why we use Java control statements to control the flow of execution. So basically Java control statements are of two types. First is selection statement, and second is iteration statements. So coming back to this particular question, this particular problem statement, this can be solved using selection statement. So in selection statement, we have several keywords. We have if else, we have switch. So this is about selection statement. We will talk about each of them in detail. So selection statement generally is used when we have to select few statements based on certain conditions, as the name suggests, selection statement. And iteration is generally used when we have to repeat the some statements, or as the name suggests, iteration, we have to repeat some statements based on certain conditions. So for iteration statements, we have while, do while, for each, and these are all loops. So we will talk about each of them one by one. Let's first try to understand about the selection statements. Then we will go on to talk about iteration statements. Now let's talk about selection statement. But before we talk about selection statement, I want to discuss the concept of block. So what is a block? So let's say I write the program. I have my public static void main. So whatever comes inside this curly braces is a block. So if I say what is a block is a set of statement enclosed by a curly braces. So let's try to see the use case of block. So one use case of block is that if I'm saying that this is a block for this main function, so whatever statement comes inside this particular block will get executed whenever main gets executed. So let's say I have an integer here, int I equal to 10. Now let's say I have one more block inside that. Let's say I put one more curly braces, and let's say I define here int k equal to 20 system dot out dot, let's say, print k. Now this is one block. I'll tell you the use case of a block just now. So k was defined inside this block, and if I try to access k here, let's say after this curly braces, if I try to do k equal to 30, this will give me an error. Why? Because k was defined here, and the scope of k is only till this particular bracket. So this is one thing that you have to note about the blocks. So one more thing is that let's talk about I now. In this case, let's say again I'll write I have int I equal to 10, and let's say this was my topmost block. Let's say I have another block here. Let's say this is block 1. Let's say this is end of block 1, and this is block, let's say 2 end, and this is start of block 2. Now since I have done I equal to 10 here already, if I again try to define int I equal to 20, or let's say int I, this will again give me an error. Why? Because in case of block, as you can see that block 2 is enclosed within block 1. So whatever elements are there in block 1 will be accessible to elements of block 2, or for that matter will be accessible to block 2. So if I simply write I equal to 30, that is fine. What we are doing here is that we are trying to redefine I, which is already redefined here. So I'll repeat the statements. If anything is declared inside a block, the scope of that particular element is only till that block. For example, here k was declared inside this particular block, hence k cannot be accessed outside this block. Outside this block, compiler has no idea that what is k. But since I is defined inside this block, and this block is also inside this particular block, so I is accessible to any place from this particular braces to this particular braces. So these are something that you need to take care of while we are talking about the statements. If I take it in another way, you can consider this as inner block and this as outer block. So whatever is defined in the outer block is accessible to inner block, but whatever is defined in inner block is not accessible to outer block. So that was about blocks that you need to take care of while coding. Now let's go on to selection statements.